Welcome to the channel Witness for Jesus. This is Dawn. This is important information. This is about Watchtower Society fighting in the USA Supreme Court for their right to not release documents relating to child abuse. Now, we've heard about this before from other sources about there potentially being a database of child abuse perpetrators and victims that Watchtower may hold. But this documentation is really important because it shows that there definitely is database information and they don't want to release it. Now, this is on the back of a court case that they had in California, which they lost. And the victim, known as JW, was abused by a member of the congregation. And Watchtower lost in court in terms of negligence and had to pay out millions to that victim and presumably the victim's family, because the victim is still a minor from what I can tell. Now, the documentation I have is the court document which is appealing to the Supreme Court over this matter. The California court case with JW, during that they were asked to produce documentation about other child abuse issues within the organisation, and they refused. I can see why they refused, because they were basically saying this is nothing to do with the current case that was being handled. But I think the prosecutors were saying that it is relevant and it's something that seems to be policy-wide, organisation-wide, and that's why it's an issue. Now, the Supreme Court appeal document, I can tell you what they're basically saying there. It's very interesting the way that this is worded and what it reveals. It actually gives you information about the data that Watchtower organisation have. And what they're doing is they're basically appealing to clergy privilege, which to many of us is a surprise, considering that throughout their history, they've claimed that they don't have clergy, and they speak out a great deal against organisations who do have clergy. So, it says in this document, I'm going to give you a really brief summary because this document is 103 pages long, but I will link you to the original document in the video description. I must say actually at this point that John Redwood is the person who has released this information. Okay, so it says, the petitioner Watchtower sought to protect confidential intrafaith communications among clergy, elders, in brackets, regarding Bible-based religious appointment processes, some of which included congregants' penitential confessions, and all of which impacted privacy rights of non-parties. California targeted the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses and impermissibly intruded upon matters of church governance, religious doctrine and religious practice when it ordered Watchtower to produce these intra-faith communications. Without a trial, California imposed on Watchtower an unprecedented theory of liability for a congregant's criminal conduct during a non-church activity, a Saturday afternoon pool party at a private home. So just to summarise that, what they're saying is that the original crime that was tried in California was at a non-church activity, which was basically a pool party at a private home, and thereby Watchtower are claiming that they're not liable. Now, that being said, that's not the point. The point of this is to do with releasing information, and it just came up. It just came up basically as part of the court case that happened in California. So it's a much, much wider issue. And the reason that this matters so much is that if Watchtower, as an organisation, are forced by the USA courts to release the information they have organisation-wide, then that is going to be a real serious problem for Watchtower organisation, because of course it would then become public knowledge. All the alleged child abusers in terms of numbers, all the alleged victims, including in fact how many have been actually convicted and therefore are not alleged abusers anymore, but are convicted abusers, we would know all of that information, and that would be extremely damning for Watchtower. Let me read to you the section of the document which reveals these data. On page 21 of the document, we read this. The scriptural qualifications for elders are set forth at, and then it lists a number of scriptures. They must be irreprehensible, sound in mind, free from accusation, righteous and self-controlled. According to the January 1st, 1997 issue of the Watchtower, contained an article entitled "Let Us Abhor What Is Wicked" that provided religious direction to Jehovah's Witnesses regarding the appointment processes. It explained that those who engage in the sin of child abuse do not meet the scriptural qualifications to hold ecclesiastical positions in the congregation. Thereafter, in March 1997, Watchtower undertook ecclesiastical measures to ensure that all United States congregations complied with this scriptural position on ecclesiastical appointments in the congregation. It communicated with elders in over 10,000 congregations nationwide. The interfaith communications Watchtower received from elders in response contained information protected by the confidentiality of confession and sensitive private information regarding the spiritual health of congregants. California ordered Watchtower to disclose these nationwide responses. Watchtower complied with all orders to produce all documents it had about the perpetrator. However, Watchtower resisted disclosing intrafaith communications wholly unrelated to this case, because they are confidential under the religious beliefs and practices of Jehovah's Witnesses. As a result, California issued terminating sanctions against Watchtower. Okay, so just to summarise, they were asked to produce these documents from the USA specifically, which were 10,000 congregations. You can imagine what kind of information that is and how damning it would be for Watchtower to release that information. So they're fighting against releasing that information. Now, you might be thinking what I'm thinking, and that is this. If they are God's organisation, they're God's true organisation with nothing to hide. They are God's spokespeople on earth, as they have claimed many, many times. They care about people. They want to protect children, right? Why would they want to hide this information? Why not be transparent? Why not just give it to the court? Why not just say, yes, here's our information, we're completely transparent? The other pertinent point made by John Redwood is that they should comply with the law of the land. The other issue, which is so relevant, is this. If the organisation is seeking to protect children, as they claim they are, if they're seeking to make sure that the law is upheld, then why are they fighting today to not release documentation in regard to child abusers? This has far-reaching effects going forward into the future for future victims. This database, if released to authorities, would thereby highlight to authorities areas of negligence wherein perpetrators may even be able to be brought to justice by this releasing of the information. Imagine if they could review the information from 10,000 congregations and they could highlight instances where the perpetrator was not dealt with adequately by the congregation. We know there's going to be those cases. We just know. So the authorities could find these perpetrators potentially and potentially take action. This would protect children going forward. If they care about protecting children going forward, then they will do everything right now to protect children going forward in those 10,000 congregations and in the congregations elsewhere around the world. They would release the information to the governing authorities who have expertise They have not only forensics but questioning techniques, knowledge about how to interview alleged perpetrators. They are qualified to deal with these situations. This would protect children going forward. But instead of releasing the information, which could protect children, which would protect children, Watchtower are fighting in court, in the Supreme Court, for the right to keep that information secret and to not allow the authorities to know who these alleged perpetrators are and how many there are and the extent of the issue. All they're doing at the moment is protecting themselves. They know that if they release this information, not only will it look really, really damning on them to the world, but it will also open them up to other potential court cases where if perpetrators are dealt with by the authorities, then victims will come forward. All they're doing is protecting their pocket and their precious organisational structure. They are not thinking of protecting children going forward. They can't be. If they were thinking of protecting children going forward, they would release this information. Look, they're supposed to be God's organisation. This isn't about a company protecting its assets. It shouldn't be. Actually, it shouldn't be. But it seems to be. If they're the true religion, what they would do is they would beg God for forgiveness for the mistakes they have made. And they would openly confess their mistakes. They would apologise and issue a worldwide apology, like other churches have. And they would do absolutely everything from this moment forward to protect the victims and to be completely transparent. I don't care about this so-called, priest, clergy confidentiality. I don't care about it. The clergy confidentiality thing, fine. If someone's, let's say, committed some other sin, like adultery or something else, right, that's fine. That's something that they talk to with their clergy. And there's confidentiality. But we know in all scenarios, let's say you see a therapist or a psychologist, you're told in advance that if something's going to be harmful to anyone, like you've murdered someone or you've hurt a child, then that's not confidential. So it shouldn't be confidential. If somebody comes to the elders and says, right, I've abused a child, I admit it, that is not confidential. That's a crime. Yeah, they can confess their sins about all kinds of things, but not when it becomes something where there's going to be people's entire lives ruined by what's been done to them. That's not something that they should be keeping confidential. And I'm absolutely disgusted that they're trying to keep this information confidential to protect themselves. And this is why I'm doing the video, because I just want everyone to know about this. I'm linking you to the court documents. If I can, actually, I'll link you to the post I saw that was written originally by John Redwood. And I believe that in the Facebook groups and probably on XJW Reddit, you'll be able to follow this case. I'm really hoping that the Supreme Court can do something about this, because surely moral principles, protecting children should come first. And I really hope that this blows up in their face and that this horrendous act to try and keep child abuse perpetrators secret is dealt with by the authorities. And actually, if you pray for that. Pray that the authorities get their eyes opened and that the authorities can bring this out. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned on this channel for other videos. Some of them are Bible based, some of them are interviews, some of them are like this that are exposés. Just subscribe and share. Okay, bye.